Hello, this is part 2 of the Master Grade GM Sniper 2 build, and as you can see here I've selected a few colours that I'm going to be using. I've already started painting the inner frame and I've laid down some primer on the arm pieces, on the head and on the Bullpup rifle. I've also gone ahead and scratch built just a tiny bit of a muzzle brake at the end of this sniper rifle. That was pretty straightforward. It's just a plastic rod, then I've got some masking tape, marked off some incremental dots, laid on top of here and drilled some holes through it, and I've just sanded over it just to make it nice and smooth. But we'll finish that off when it comes to painting this, just to make sure it's all nice and consistent. I haven't done much in the way of modification on the kit. All I've done is really sanded off part of the forearm that had two little tiny discs on it, and I just added in some more detailed kind of bolt-like parts to the forearm. Let me zoom in a bit more so you can see that. Just primed it, but yeah, you can see here and here, here and here. I've added in a bit of detail. And I'm going to wet sand all of these parts to make them nice and smooth and reprime them again, ready for painting. Now I think I mentioned in a previous video that I'm going to try and do a modulated paint job, and that means that I'm going to graduate different colours of paint from dark to light to give a kind of an illusion of a light effect on the model. It's going to be quite stylized, which means it's going to be quite contrasty and not exactly true to real life, but hopefully it will look okay. And just to give you an idea of how that kind of looks, I've got here a copy of In Combat 2 from Mig Jimenez. So some really nice examples of how to weather your mecha and that kind of thing. But there is a particularly good example of a modulated paint job in here that's painted by the modeler called Oishi, and that's this Zaku one here. Now I'm not going to paint it exactly like this, but this is a good example of how a modulated paint job looks. And there's actually quite a few different ways that you can get this effect. This one, for example, uses what's called the black and white method, where you paint the pieces white and then do kind of a black pre-shade, and then put your colour over the top of that to create a kind of shade to it. And what I'm going to do is test out 3 different ways of doing paint modulation on spoons, and we'll see how they look. Okay, so you've just seen how I've gone ahead and painted that, and here are the 3 different spoons. to recap, this was primed just with ordinary grey, and then what I did was I added a layer of light blue over the top of that. Then I shaded it with navy blue, and then I painted over the whole thing in light blue. So we went from this to this is the shade, and then this to cover the whole lot. This one here was actually from black to white, so I used some really bright white on top of the grey primer. Then I just used black to shade it. Then I painted over the whole thing in sky blue. And you can see that has a bit more of a muted effect to it, a bit more of a kind of a pastel-y look to it, not so bold. This one, which I like the most, I actually just went ahead and I did a grey primer. Then I put down the light blue. Then I did the navy blue as a shade, and then the light blue on top of that. Now unfortunately, although it looks quite cool, it's probably a bit too strong a contrast for me to go ahead and use that on every single armor part. So what I might do is do a little bit less of this navy, a little bit less of this light blue, and maybe filter it just one more with a very thin layer of this blue, just to kind of blend it all in a bit better. But, that was a quite successful experiment, I think. So let's go ahead and start painting the armor pieces. So here is the Bullpup rifle, just to kind of demonstrate how the base coat looks at the minute. And this is just primed, and then I've done a base coat of black, and I'm going to have the top in some light grey and just giving it a bit of subtle shading here and there just to indicate a bit of depth to it. Next thing I'm going to do here is just to mask off some different areas, maybe hand paint in some details, and maybe added like a darker grey on some of these detail parts just to bring it all out a bit better and to make it a bit more detailed. Same in all the other inner frame parts. I'm going to add some various metallics and things just to make it all pop a little bit better. Now I've primed all of the armor parts now, so the next thing to do is to give them a nice light wet sand. And I'm using here some what is this? This is 2000 grit paper, so it's incredibly fine. And what I'm going to do is I'm literally going to make this wet, and I'm going to very lightly go over the whole armor piece and every single armor piece until it's nice and smooth. Just dunking the part in now and then just to wash off any excess. Good thing about wet sanding is it gives you a very nice smooth finish on which to start applying your paintwork. The only drawback is though, in some areas, especially like in these little kind of groove parts, it might be hard to get to, but you can always just use the edge of your paper here. And don't worry too much if you take off too much primer, you can always re-prime it afterwards. And you could, if you like, do this quite a few times until your surface is absolutely flawless. This really helps when you have like a surface that's just a little bit inconsistent, to just kind of go in and keep re-priming it until you're totally happy with it. There we go. I think that's pretty good. Nice smooth surface. Leave that to dry, of course. Make sure you rinse off any kind of excess bits of primer on there, and we're good to go. So here is a piece of that armour that I've painted in the modulated style, and you can see it has been toned down quite a bit from the original spoon, which was pretty strong. And what I did was just added another very light layer of the sky blue, and I think that's worked really nicely. It's given a very nice, more subtle effect. You might be able to see it better on a different piece. So on this part as well, I've done the modulated effect, but I've painted in the tips of these bolt parts in with a bit of metallic enamel. And the next thing to do is just to clear coat all of these parts, do any masking that I need to do some panel lining, work on the inner frame a bit, and then think about some weathering, but I'll probably leave the weathering until everything is painted. So this is just the arms and the head and the bullpup rifle at the minute. So that's it for this video for now. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again next time. Bye bye.